seen democracy. All we've seen is hypocrisy. When we open our eyes today and look around, 22 million black victims of Americanism are waking up, and they're gaining a new political consciousness, becoming politically mature. And as they develop this political maturity, they're able to see the recent trends in these political elections. Any minority that has a block of votes that stick together is in a strategic position. Either way you go, that's who gets it. You're in a position to determine who go to the White House and who stay in the doghouse. You're the one who has that power. You and I have never seen democracy. All we've seen is hypocrisy. When we open our eyes today and look around America, we see America not through the eyes of someone who has enjoyed the fruits of Americanism. We see America through the eyes of someone who has been the victim of Americanism. We don't see the American dream. We've experienced only the American nightmare. We haven't benefited from America's democracy. We've only suffered from America's hypocrisy. And the generation that's coming up now can see it and are not afraid to say it. 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 I'm not afraid to say it. 22 million black victims of Americanism are waking up, and they're gaining a new political consciousness, becoming politically...
Check 1 2 1 2. Welcome to BlackWestchester.com presents People Before Politics Radio. We have Damon K. Jones, a.k.a. Damon Evans in the house.
Hey. Yes.
We have Cynthia Turnquest-Jones.
Good afternoon, good afternoon.
I am A.J. Woodson, and we have our guest.
New York State Senator. Oh, excuse me. New York State Senator Andrea Stewart-Cousins.
And I don't have the sound effects, so we got to kind of give
we got to clap. We got to clap.
My sound effects ain't working, so we got the manual.
Some reasons we can't pull up our sound effects tonight, but it's okay.
All right. So this is first off. This is our 10th show.
Yes.
So clap it up for that. Congrats.
Yes.
We got
10th show.
10th
show.
Word up. And real quick, what has everybody been doing this week? What you do this week? What you do?
I had a busy weekend. It was the New York State NAACP convention. I was there.
Right.
It was the NABLEO convention that was down the street. I was there. I just came in. We all just came in from a law enforcement appreciation day at Shiloh Baptist Church in Tuckahoe.
Yes.
I spoke there briefly. It was a beautiful weekend seeing black people from all different backgrounds and professions come together, and what was beautiful about it was at both conventions, coming together, discussing the issues in our community, participating in the right to vote, in using your vote for what counts, economic development in our community, because as law enforcement, we understand that poverty is part of crime and violence. If we could eliminate poverty, if we could raise the minimum wage to a livable wage, we could reduce a lot of crime and violence in our communities. And if we can improve our educational system, we can improve the quality of life for young people coming up. So, I think that was the universal message at both conventions, and that's where I came out for this weekend.
No doubt. Now, Cynthia, the Queen, what was you doing this weekend? I know, besides being at the hookah bar with your people.
Okay, as usual, I go to work every day. I have perfect attendance so far. Clap that up. Very important as an administrator in school to show the children how important it is to be present every day. Ever since one of my students were murdered, Ramali Graham, I started an all-girls group at the school called Bronx Girls Rock. What I was trying to do at first was trying to connect with Black Girls Rock, but they didn't have a chapter in the Bronx, and they didn't have anything for the girls in the Bronx. So at my school, Urban Assembly School for Wildlife Conservation, I started Bronx Girls Rock, and what we do is we sit down, we have powwows, we talk about how we can uplift each other and things of that nature. So Friday we had our second meeting, and the girls are excited because we are going to make sure that we walk for breast cancer awareness at Orchard Beach, which is on the 19th of October.
That's great.
That's what's up. That's what's up.
That's great. And we'd like to welcome again our New York State Senator. She is the head of the Democratic Conference. That means she is in charge, y'all. She's in charge. So we like to welcome to the show. She's been on People Before Politics before, but now with the new format that we have, welcome to the show again.
It's always good to be here with you, Damon, and it's good to see you, Cynthia, and certainly our DJ. It's nice to be part of the program and to. Really, I guess I saw you last night.
Yes,
right?
yes, you did.
Because as you were talking about the places you were, I was at those places
Yes.
as well.
Yes.
And so it was very good to be there and to reaffirm what we hope we all know is that our participation is just so important.
Right.
And no matter how we do it, certainly forums and taking part in things that really uplift the community and certainly getting out to vote.
Right.
It makes a difference. So I was happy to be in both the NAACP conference as well as the law enforcement conference, and to again give encouragement to people
Yes.
as well in terms
Yes.
of what they're doing and how important it is that the movements keep happening, because again, people like me in government
Right.
need to see and hear the voices of our community.
That's right. And we need support. We need to support you and what you're trying to do in state government. Now, over the last couple of months, there's been a lot of, we have Rob Astorino, he's running for governor, and he has brought up a lot of things like Common Core, and he also brought up trying to oppose the gun law. Can you speak to those pieces of state legislation that's important, to the common person,
Right.
that maybe, they hear the news, that they hear Astorino they see him on News 12 and see him on these different media, but they don't really, I don't think that they really understand how it affects them in their home, these
No,
laws.
it really is difficult. I will say that I was on the county level before I ran
Yes.
for state.
Right.
And the reason why I ran for state government was because county takes care of, I established the first human rights laws.
That's
and,
right.
And,
That's right.
and did prevailing wage laws and anti-profiling laws and all of the things you could do on the county level. You can't necessarily do those same things on the state level as quickly, number one.
Right, right.
And also it doesn't impact education. And I am a person who believes strongly in public education and understands the value of public education, because I've said it before, I grew up in the projects and I went to public schools, my kids went to public schools, and I understand that education is really a great equalizer.
Right.
So I wanted to impact education. Something like the Common Core, there's a couple of things that I think most everybody agrees with. A, we need some sort of common standard for our children. They need to have a basic education foundation that people can move forward with in life and be in a position to compete globally.
Right.
And that
Right.
was not happening. So this Common Core, apparently, and people talk about it, this is the origin, that's the origin, whatever it is. From what I gather, governors across the country, as well as educators and so on and so forth, came together and said, we got to do this common standard. What happened here in New York, however, is the first time it came attached to dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars. And there were requisites that we had to change different things and add, charter schools and do a lot of different things that we in the legislature did not do, because if we were going to add charter schools, we had to make sure that charter schools accepted everybody, not just take
a pool of good students and say,
that's right, and
my
everybody
average
else.
is above everybody else, but you picked all good students.
Exactly,
Right.
or the private charter schools that were getting public monies should not continue to be getting we weren't going to add a bunch of privately run private schools.
Right.
So there were a lot of things
Right.
that we held off on. Now, if you remember, this was in the beginning of the recession,
Right.
and they were dangling on the national government at this point $700 million.
Wow.
So we did not get it the first round. The second time this came back to us, it was again the same $700 million, but we were able to do different things in terms of, again, the charter schools, in terms of creating something that we could vote for in the legislature. What happened in the interim, though, is that in order for us to look more appealing to the federal government, I believe that the people in state ed said, we'll do Common Core, but we're going to do it faster than everybody else
Okay.
in terms of
Okay.
rolling it out.
Okay.
And so that's why we should get this money, and that's why we should so on. So we did that. And what happened, I think, is the rollout was just impossible for people. They had teachers who didn't have the resources that they needed to teach the new concept to young people who, of course, are brilliant, but they still have to have new things rolled out, new concept rolled out by people who understand it and people who are absolutely assured of what the steps are and how, and that didn't happen. So we have managed now, and certainly with all of the input of communities across the board, some people hate Common Core, but most people hate the rollout of Common Core. So we've been able to say, look, it's not going to count against your child's record.
Right.
Let's try and get it right. And, I said I've got a lot of senators who are very concerned that Common Core standards go away and their kids who are failing in some of these schools
Right.
keep failing and nobody would care. So I think if we can create a Common Core that creates standards that people can live with, get rid of all the crazy testing every minute, because
Right.
nobody agrees that testing or teaching to the test is a good way
Right.
to do it.
Right.
But find a way to educate our kids so they'll be competitive and roll it out in a way where teachers can feel confident that they have the resources to do the job. I think we're one step closer.
So on the state level, it's still in the process. The
Exactly.
legislation is still in the creative process, and there's still
Exactly.
still working before.
Exactly,
So
but
I think people need to know that,
Yes.
because you have people thinking it's going, like you already
No, it's-
voted on it. It's the law, but
No.
it's a working process.
And
you're
it's been a fight for a very long time, because I
right.
met you up in Albany. I think it was last year or the year before last. I got the pictures on Facebook, but anyway. And so one of the things that a lot of individuals do not realize is that this has been a fight for a very long time. It came into existence when President Barack Obama became president of the United States. But what a lot of individuals don't understand is that this concept of Common Core standards were talked about for a very
That's
long time,
right.
if I'm not mistaken, all the way back to Reagan. And so what I explained to Damon, because Damon said, what is this Common Core thing? And I explained to him, I said, you have students who reside in somewhere like Texas. And then you have students that reside in New York. And those students from Texas come to New York go to Texas, and it's totally two different things that's being
That's
taught.
right.
And everybody is on a different page. But if you get the standards and you get the percentage of data from a place like Finland, all of them are being taught the same high standards. That's why they're so high on the educational chart. And so now turning the United States around to this Common Core standards, it's a battle. It's very, very hard. What a lot of individuals don't understand is that New York State has the most rigid educational standards set. In New York State, you cannot graduate out of high school if you do not pass the Regents exams. You have students who are in 12th grade and they finish all their classes, and if they leave and go somewhere to Connecticut, or if they leave and go somewhere to Pennsylvania, they graduate immediately. But if they stayed in New York State, because they did not pass the Regents exams, they do not get a diploma. They do not pass Go. So, you know, I know Common Core is rigid. I know a lot of individuals are against Common Core. I just happen to be a person who's for Common Core. I see what it can do. I see children who they talk about that can't do it, that are doing it right now, and they're doing it with no problem. But as long as the teachers have the resources,
That's exactly right.
as long as we give the professional development to not only the educators but also to the families, to the parents, and to the students, then this Common Core thing will work out.
You know, I mean, I think it started all of a sudden. It's like everything else. The president does one thing, and like it said, it wasn't his thing. I mean, it was part of it was this, I guess, trying to get away from the race, the No Child Left Behind.
They left everybody behind with that program.
And everybody was upset with that.
Right.
And so then, you know, the president's program was called Race to the Top. The reality is that everybody is understanding that unless and until we are able to educate our young people, all of our young people, we cannot hope to compete in a global economy. And so all of a sudden now, because the president is attached to it on some circles and it becomes sort of a political football, all of a sudden it's Barack's Common Core, and therefore automatically, you know, there's a segment of the population that's against it. Now, I have been very clear with, again, my constituents, and I have Yonkers, I have White Plains, I have New Rochelle, I have Greenburgh, I have Scarsdale. Scarsdale, frankly, has an educational system which has really consistently put their kids on the top.
Right.
They were like, all of a sudden now we've got Common Core and we're being assessed in a different way, and now our kids are looking like they're not really achieving, and this is going to impact them in terms of their getting into the good colleges and so on and so forth. And I understood those parents' concern, because if you're already doing well,
why change it? Yeah.
You don't want to change it.
Right.
So I think that, again, there's things that we need to do that will help respect the school districts that are frankly doing very well, and find ways to lift our kids who need to be lifted because they're not, you know, again, properly resourced or whatever. We need to fix that, but I don't think there's anything wrong with having a common standard by which everyone could say, I know this, I know that, I know this, I know that, you know, bring it on, I can do it.
Exactly. And the same thing goes for when I said, use the example as the student moving from Texas to New York, the teacher moving from, let's say, New York to Maryland or New York to Florida. That teacher already know the Common Core standard as well.
But it takes a while, because, you know, we've all learned in certain ways.
Right.
I mean, we all came up in an education system that was there. The Common Core is more of a conceptual thing. How do we provoke a thought process, a creative process that allows you to get to this point without me telling you this is that.
It's in depth.
Yeah,
it's in depth. So one of the things that my son is having a difficult time with. My son is the youngest one has dyslexia, right? As a mathematician, though, he was excellent until they started putting incorporating the reading into the math exams, because now he has to explain and write out
that answer.
How we got the answer.
We got a comment from a listener, Anissa Vincent. She's saying, I agree. I am totally for Common Core. Having 2 children that graduated from Mount Vernon public schools and still have to take basic classes when they got to college because they weren't fully prepared. Now I have 2 small ones in school now, and I want them to be competitive.
That's exactly right.
Great. Yeah.
That's exactly right. And that's it. You know, so to speak to your question about the politics of it, you know, I'm glad you asked the question, because people have to get beyond the rhetoric and really understand, you know, who's presenting the reality, who's just trying to, you know, get you excited so that you'll do this or that. Common Core, like I said, we're working on it, but our kids
Right.
can do better in many of our school districts,
Right.
and that's where our focus is.
Right.
People have to understand there's a governor's race and there is Senate races, there's
Right.
assembly races,
Mhm.
there are judges running, and you know, there are a lot of big issues. The gun laws was another
Right.
thing
Right.
that you mentioned, and
Right.
again, that happened right after Sandy Hook.
Right.
We came in, we had a bunch of gun laws that we had not been able to pass for
Right.
a long time.
Yeah,
and
I was up in Albany and lobbying for the gun law with Senator Malcolm Smith,
Yeah.
and you know, we thought it was a good bill. You know, a lot of people was upset. The gun right activist was upset, but I mean, you don't need 90 rounds. You don't need to walk around with 90 rounds, you know, on you. It's just,
Absolutely not.
you know, I mean, you know, and see, what I was really upset about is that there wasn't any police unions up there to support it, because it actually changed, the laws changed, you know, especially shooting on a first responder, you know, and I thought that was important. And having a wife that's a detective, you don't want to run in a house where the guy got more ammo than you
That's
do.
right. That's
You know,
exactly
I
right.
mean,
That's
that's,
exactly right.
you know, I mean, you're to have, you know, the right to bear arms. They're fine. Okay, you can have a gun. You could, I mean, and then it was nice if you already had a semi-automatic, you could keep it. You
Right.
know, just
Just want to
register.
know who you are.
Thank
that's
you,
all,
thank
know.
you. But they
Ju-
get into this whole conspiracy thing that, you know, they're gonna take your guns like over in Russia or something like that. You know, come on.
Well, two things real quick. One, I need you to put the mic a little closer to you,
Yes,
or
sir.
move up closer to the mic.
Okay.
And two, I have you know, I encourage people to look things up for themselves, not to just accept everything they hear and read. So where online or can the average person find this information about what Common
About the-
Core, what's going on with Common
Common
Core?
Oh, but I just have a statement made from a teacher that's in Maryland, and she said that in Maryland the students have to pass the HSA, and because they cannot pass it, they send their kids to school in DC because they need 100 community service hours
Really?
and 24 credits.
Wow.
So you're getting the switching where individuals, and I've seen it done, where individuals, they're going to school in New York and then they move to Pennsylvania, and then the child will come back and say, I already graduated. Right. But another thing is that this thing with a standard, you know, the hungriness for low
That's right.
standards. We need a high standard. We
In
need to
everything.
be able to
Right.
be in the race. Our children need to be a part of the race.
Absolutely, absolutely. To answer your question,
Right,
they
right.
can go online to the State Education Department,
Okay.
New York State's Education Department,
Okay.
and find information on the Common Core, as well as the impacts of the recent changes that we've made to the legislation
Right.
that allows, again, for kids not to have to be assessed in terms of the Common Core and their performance, as well as teachers, as you know, they're not going to be evaluated on it immediately as well.
Okay.
And then in addition to the changing of the gun laws, Damon and I, we did a pajama party for the women that lives at the YWCA in Yonkers, and there was when he fed them and taught them about the gun laws and what they didn't know, and they were very much enthused and wanted to know this information. So individuals need to understand that things like Common Core and gun laws, they need to be taught to our people and all people in small pockets.
Absolutely, and they
Right.
have to be. You know, I was driving down Broadway in Irvington, and I was wearing. I had my my license plate says New York Senate, and so these young people drove next to me, and she says, you know, the girl who's driving, she may have been 20. She says, "Are you a senator?" And I said, "Yes." And so she says, "Oh, how cool is that?" And so I said, which I thought, you know, first of all, I will say that she was you know, probably a 20-something white young lady.
Right.
And the idea that we have come to this place
Right,
where she would look at me and say, "Are
And
you
that
a
was
senator?"
that's a
And that
comment,
was right.
And it
so
was okay.
and that
And it
was
was cool.
fine.
And
It
it
was
was cool.
fine. Not only that, I mean, she didn't look at me and she didn't say, "Well, where's the senator?" You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah, yeah,
Right.
But
right.
she, you know what I'm saying? So
I'm with you.
Are you
So-
driving the
so
senator's car?
that's
Right.
exactly right.
Are you
Who-
dating?
Are you
Senator?
on your
Who
way?
are you?
Are you on your way to pick up the senator right now?
Exactly, you know. So the fact that she didn't say that, because
Right.
those are the subtle things that we forget to acknowledge has really, you know,
Right.
So anyway, so she said, "Are you the senator?" So I said, "Yeah." So she says, "Oh, that's really good." And then the next thing out of this young lady's mouth was, "Yeah, but you're trying to take away our guns." And I'm like, "No, we're not." She says, "Yes, you are." And I'm like, "Well, no." I said, I'm looking at her and I'm saying, "Nobody's trying to take away your guns." I said, "I just want to make sure you're safe. I want to know who has guns." And so her friend in the back seat says, "I'm okay with that."
Right.
I'm saying,
Right,
you
right.
know, and so then I told her, I said, "Where do you live?" And she says, "Irvington." So I said, "I'm your senator." She says, "Oh, that's so nice." You know, so she was very happy. She was happy when I told her we just wanted to make her safe.
Right.
Her friend was perfectly comfortable with that.
Right.
And that is really what we're talking about. Nobody's coming to take guns away. You know, nobody understands why you have to have, like you said, 90 rounds to do
Whatever.
whatever it is
like,
you're
why
doing.
do you need 150?
Like
you know,
in South
300
Central LA,
rounds?
they got the automatic AR or something that the ones that patrol the school. They got approved on the before school started to carry these.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
I mean, like,
Well,
what do you, so you can spray a whole
see that-
hallway? Like, what's
That's-
the?
Well,
I just want.
it's amazing. I mean, we. But that's the
That's
whole
the part that is
militarization of the police force and just, you know, people just getting it out of hand. Like, we need national standards for education. We also need national standards for policing. There's no national, you know, there's no actual governmental national standards on policing.
Right.
You know, all police departments train differently. Even in Westchester, 43 municipalities, you know, they train people differently. I mean, we really need to, you know, have some type of national standards. But one thing, how does, I want the listeners, because this is not for me, this is for the listeners. How does legislation that's talked about in the White House, you know,
Right.
transfer to state legislation? Because, you know, when a guy like Astorino's saying Obama wants to take your guns, you understand what I'm saying? When it's a
Right.
state legislation,
Right.
but it's Obama wants to take your guns. Obama ain't got nothing to do with it.
You know, and that's the sad part about it,
Right.
because if people, you know, assume that you won't know the difference, and that's kind of easy to say, and you won't figure it out, then unfortunately people get away with misinformation. The reality is that every level, and I always even start with kids when I talk to them, do you have rules to follow? Yes. In school, yes. They can always tell me the rules. They'll tell me who made the rules. It's the principal.
Right.
I tell them,
Right.
you know.
Enforces the rules. That's not really
Right,
the rules.
right,
right.
yeah. Well, sometimes they make the rules, sometimes
right,
they
right.
enforce the rule.
Right.
But I tell them everything is political to begin with, because when you talk about that principal coming, how that principal get there? The Board of Education.
Right.
In many
Right.
places, the Board of Education is elected.
Right.
That's right.
Or if
It's
say in a
appointed
place
to
like
some-
Yonkers, where it is appointed by who? The mayor, who yes is elected.
Right.
I want to say two things. One, we want to thank you for coming, because to take your time to do this.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
okay.
And the reason we wanted to do this show is to get the word, like what we're talking about. A lot of people don't have this information.
Exactly.
And
Right.
and the major forums are not doing this.
That's right.
And they're cutting out, like we have Bob Law, and they talk about they're dwindling out all of
That's
our
right, I know.
sources of information
I know.
for us to get information from our people about what affects us. So when our senator comes through and takes her time to come through and
Yeah,
have
we
this kind of
appreciate. We definitely
conversation,
appreciate.
we
it.
need that. We need to
Oh,
really
no, and
show that this is a big thing. We appreciate.
Oh, it's
that.
a big, and it's a, you know, it's an honor and it's a privilege, and I do appreciate the fact that there is a forum like this. But anyway, so every level of government handles certain things, and so the federal government will sometimes dictate what the states can do. The state government generally regulates itself, but also sometimes has to dictate or has dictated what counties will do, and so on and so forth.
Right.
So every level, you know, has their own jurisdiction. But what a lot of people think is that the only thing they have to do is vote for the president,
Right.
and you know, every 4 years they wake up from a deep slumber, you know, vote for
That's
somebody.
right.
And meanwhile, everything from whether or not the potholes are getting fixed,
We
whether
deal
or
with that a
not
lot,
your
too.
kid is
Yeah.
getting educated, whether or not, you know, the police or emergency services are responsible are all handled by the local government.
Right.
Period.
And that is not taught.
No.
See,
No.
that part needs to be
Civics
taught.
isn't taught anymore.
It's not
No,
taught. That
that's
part is
right.
not taught.
That's right.
They
You're
used
right.
to talk about
Right.
your obligation as a citizen to be involved, to at least vote. It's a franchise, and how important it is. And now people don't realize it, and they're bombarded with information on every level all
Right.
the time. You know, they don't even.
Right.
So we have a statement from Lee Barry. She says that in order for people to feel connected and empowered, they need to feel like they are a part of the change or the rules.
Right.
Just like kids in rules. Students follow the rules better when they have a say in the rules of the school and classroom.
Well, you know, and most governments have a forum for people to be involved. If you go to here again in City Yonkers, and I'm sure in other jurisdictions, when the city council or the town council meets, people have an opportunity to
I
be,
go all the time.
to be involved and to say
But
something.
the average person still doesn't know, because we've
They
been going
don't.
to
They
the,
don't.
we've
They,
been going
you
to
know,
the
they
city council
don't.
meetings.
They don't know this. You know what else is interesting? Being that I work in the school, a lot of the elections are in the school.
Right.
When we walk into the school, the students are like, "Are they voting for the president today?" I said, "It's not. It's
Exactly.
not only the president that is voted for,
That's right.
and it is not taught right now."
Right, and that's why again we have to realize that we are competing with so much information, misinformation,
Right.
miseducation, you
Right.
name it. And so the opportunities that we have to shed a light on the processes and important issues, we have to do. But it's not the kids' fault that they don't know
Because they can't teach
what's
themselves.
important.
Yeah, right.
And even their parents, you know, people are now, we understand that people are running hard, their lives are busy, maybe they have
Right.
you know, a job that's a big commute, maybe they got 2 jobs, 3 jobs. They don't always know what is going on. So we in the public realm endeavor to try, if you're on my email list, you'll get an email
Right,
blast
right.
or something in the mail or whatever, but you know, we have to depend on community outlets a lot of times, and usually what happens is people are interested in different things.
Right.
So if you're interested in the environment, you're probably hooked into an environmental group.
Right.
You probably
right.
won't know what's going on
Outside the
in terms of
environment, right.
because
Right.
that's
That's the
how
way
we
it is.
become very kind of siloed.
Right.
And unless we're constantly doing this cross connecting, people
Right.
will miss out. But all I ask people to do is they don't have to know everything about everything, but find something. There is something in your life, in your child's life, in
That
your
affects you.
community's life that you can get involved in, and you will be amazed at how much information and what an expert you can be in some issue
Right.
that will be important to someone. And
That's right.
you know, most of the laws that get made are made as a result
Of the people.
somebody.
Making
Right.
noise.
Right.
Right. Something happened to someone, and we wind up on our level reacting.
And you're right, because people, you know, people just don't understand it. Like when that whole year where they had the Occupy Wall Street movement,
Right.
and it was all. I mean, every major city it was just occupying, and it was chaos, and it was people. But that next year, Barack got it, and when he did the State of the Union, he stayed quiet that whole year.
That's right.
But when he did that next year, when he did the State of the Union, he addressed those issues that these people was out there on the lawn and in front of their city halls screaming about. He addressed those issues. Now, one of those issues, and maybe people want to think about, is our minimum wage in New York. I mean, I see that Mayor de Blasio is
Right.
doing 10-10.
Right.
Right. And where are we at with the minimum wage, and how are we
Right.
moving
Well,
that
I'll tell
legislation?
you something. That has been really something my conference has been really steadfast in pushing. When the governor introduced this whole minimum wage concept 2 years ago,
Right.
and just to your point about Occupy Wall Street, this whole income inequality, that has
Yes.
continued to be the conversation.
Yes,
And that was a
yes.
very big piece of Occupy Wall Street. But
Mhm.
the governor in 2012, when he did his State of the State, said we have to raise the minimum wage to $8.75. my conference agreed, and I had the Democrats, but we're not in the majority because we had 5 Democrats that went to the Republicans.
We're gonna talk about that in a few.
Okay. Okay. So anyway, just
We're gonna talk about
just
that
to
in a
make
few.
sure
And the
we
upcoming election, that's very important.
Yeah,
Yeah, we're gonna talk about that.
just to make sure people understand. So anyway, the governor wanted 875 happening in July of that year. The assembly wanted $9 happening in July of that year. My conference, the Democrats wanted $9 to happen. The Republicans didn't want anything to happen. The independent Democrats who coupled themselves with the Republicans said they wanted $9. At the end of the process, it wound up being $8 starting this past New Year's Eve,
Right.
and it won't be $9 until 2016, which is outrageous. So we have been fighting to
So now,
Okay, wait now.
Well-
so how much is minimum wage?
You're right.
minimum wage right now, I believe, is $8.25.
$8.25.
Right.
In Atlanta, it's $7.25.
So-
Right, and it used to
$8.
be, but we raised it. But we wanted to raise it to
25
$9 with
Right.
indexing, so that we won't have this fight every time. That it would be indexing to the cost of living, and we wouldn't have to come back and vote on it.
now,
And so, now
so
we
New York
managed to
City
say
is pushing
9.
10-10.
Well, New York City is pushing 1010, and the other thing that is being pushed, and I'm carrying that bill, allows for municipalities to raise their own minimum wage in the absence of the state really coming up with a minimum wage that will lift people out of poverty. Apparently, we were not able to do that. Then I carried a bill that says, okay, fine, Westchester, you know nobody can live on $8
Right.
an hour. So
Good. We got
you
Ken
have-
Jenkins coming in
you-
a minute, so
right.
we could get him on it.
you have this jurisdiction over it. You know, you can do it. Now, that's the other thing. So the county executive is not interested.
Oh no,
in anything.
Not
like
only
that.
that,
He couldn't even show up to the
he
prom-
lowered our wage.
Oh.
$8,000. All new correctional officer hirees make $8,000 less than the ones that's working. And I don't know how it passed. I voted against it, but still, just his mindset and
Right.
also
Right.
promising the Westchester Business Association that he would lower county workers' wages.
Sound like another reason why he shouldn't be promoted to governor.
No, he shouldn't,
I'm just
because
Yeah,
along with other things. But when we talking about wages, and you're talking about
Right.
trying to live in Westchester, even your public servants are moving out of the county
Right.
because they can't afford to live in the
And
county.
that's so
how
much.
do you get word like this? How do you get information like this to the people so they understand? So this dude
Because they
won't
don't get
become-
it. Because a
But
lot of young
I
people.
don't understand the I don't.
Well, I think again, it said if you go on to, if you go on to Governor Cuomo's
Right.
campaign talking point, he will talk about raising the minimum wage. He talks about things like the DREAM Act. He talks about things like making sure that there's equality and justice. I don't know that say the county executive is talking about the minimum wage on his campaign stuff.
No, he's not.
You know, people
I haven't
have
heard
to
of
look
it.
for the issues
Right.
that concern them.
But if he's running for office, shouldn't we be taking that to him? We
Well,
should
sure,
be
that's
making
what
him speak.
you could
we should
be
making
asking
speak
him,
on
yeah,
it.
what do
Right.
you think about raising the minimum wage? Where do you fall on that?
Oh.
That's important. I mean, like I said, I know he says that he doesn't want the sort of patchwork quilt. If we could raise the minimum wage to a level that actually, as they said, lifts people out of poverty, I'm okay with
Can
that.
that be done on a statewide level, or is
No,
it-
no,
Sure.
right.
Well,
She's saying
it can
she's
be
trying
done
to
on a
even-
statewide, and we didn't do it right. Like I said, by the time this negotiation went on with the minimum wage, it was negotiated into such a low level that people won't get to $9 until 2016.
Right, when it should
Okay.
need to be
And we
increased
need
again
to be
by that time. yeah.
exactly. So I said the secondary option then was, okay, fine, allow these different municipalities
To do
to
their own,
raise it.
to
So
do
if
their
New
own.
York City needs to do it, we should allow them to do it. Now, neither Governor Cuomo nor the Rob Astorino liked that approach, but the governor has conceded that A, we need to raise the minimum wage higher,
Right.
and B, that he doesn't mind flexibility in terms of raising the minimum wage, whereas Rob Astorino has said Nothing on the issue that I know of.
I've said this a few times. I've been in Atlanta the last few years, and two of the biggest corporations that hire a lot of minorities are Walmart and McDonald's, and 75 to 78% of their employees are on some kind of public assistance, food stamps, or whatever. With the two biggest corporations that are making money there, and if they was to raise the minimum wage, the people could afford to buy their own food.
Well,
And
that's
pay
it.
their own rent. You
Because
know what I'm saying?
rent-
Like, you
because-
wouldn't have to come
because
from.
the rest of the taxpayers are subsidizing them,
Right,
and
right.
that's interesting that you should say that, because this negotiated deal in terms of raising the minimum wage that happened on the state, with the Republicans really pushing this thing on the Senate level, was that 16 to 19-year-olds are not given the same minimum wage by the companies. Somehow they negotiated for we, the taxpayer, to supplement a corporation like Walmart or McDonald's if they have a 16 to 19-year-old working for them.
Wow.
So you're
And
kind of
the applications,
incentivizing them.
It asks you, are you 16 but not over 18? That's a question on the application.
Yes, and you know why? Because the day they hit 20, they practically have an incentive to say goodbye to them, because then they would have to pay the minimum wage. Right now, for 16 to 19-year-olds, we the people are subsidizing a Walmart or a McDonald's for that minimum wage increase, which is, again, I mean,
Isn't that handouts?
well,
Isn't
I
that
know,
what
to
the
see, that's what-
Republican calls corporate handouts?
Right, and if you pay, that's what I'm saying. And in their minds, if you would pay the people a decent wage, you wouldn't have to hand anything,
Of course
because I
not.
can afford my own food,
Of course.
and I won't need food stamps if I can make enough money. I mean,
Of
that's
course,
what-
of course. And I said we're paying for it anyway as the taxpayer,
right,
because
right.
that's, the only way those subsidies happen
Right.
is through our tax dollars
Right.
in any case. In addition to which, the whole idea of pretending that most of the low wage workers are 16, 19-year-olds who are just kind of doing this, to get extra lunch money, that's not true. We
Exactly,
know that the
exactly.
majority of the low wage workers are women, certainly women of color, and many of them have
single
families.
parents, single mothers.
Yes. So I mean, it's not like it's not going to impact a major group of people who will spend their money back in the communities too.
Right.
So
I
we have
mean,
another comment from Lee Barry. She says some politicians don't see the value in people because they live way above the poverty line. So by them keeping the minimum wage low and decreasing the salary of new correction officers doesn't affect their bottom line or the bottom line of those that fund their campaigns.
Well, like I said, I think that all of us who are in politics are well served by finding ways to communicate with our constituents and finding out how people are living. And I tell you, it's the national mood too, because they talk about our gross national product really going up and how our economy is rebounding. But even the president has said the problem is that it's not being felt on Main Street.
Right.
And the reality is because the wages have really gone down.
Right.
Over,
Right.
the real wages, by comparison, taking into account inflation and everything else, has
So,
really
so
gone down.
there's less good paying jobs.
Yes.
And there's now more
Right.
McDonald type of jobs.
And
You know what I'm saying? So-
people aren't seeing the increases.
No.
They're not seeing increases in their pay.
No, they're not.
So-
Expenses is going up, but your pay is leveled off.
Or
You know.
gone down. in
Yeah,
many
yeah,
cases.
yeah.
So, in
Yeah.
order for us all to really start thriving and feeling good about this economy, we have to find a way that as we build the economy and corporations, and we understand we want corporations to do well, we want America to be competitive, we need corporations to hire people, we need people to be entrepreneurial and create their own business, we get that.
Right.
But workers have to be respected for what they put into this as well.
Right.
And it can't be, all or nothing or just a one-way street. You can't have people unable to feed their families and live in decent housing and work, 40 hours, 60 hours, 80 hours a week. It's just
In Atlanta, I found it was easier, instead of working for some of the corporations for a lesser salary, to work for the temp agencies, and you get $14 an hour. You just don't have no benefits.
that you don't have the
But
benefits.
you
Right.
got $14 an hour, and you can live a little
Yeah,
better,
yeah.
and you're not getting
Isn't that
you're not
interesting?
getting the minimum wage of
Until
$7, $8,
until one of
$9.
your teeth start acting up,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
then
yeah.
you
Then you just walk around with that. Oh, it's hurt.
Yeah. So I just looked up a couple of charts here. They have let me see. In Virginia, minimum wage is $7.25. $7.25. That's a Big Mac.
Well, it was
meal,
here.
right?
It was $7.25 here in New York. I mean, what's the
Right.
difference?
Georgia,
something-
$5.15.
What?
$5.15.
Where?
Georgia.
No, it's $7.25.
Well,
Oh,
$7.25.
that's probably
that's
old.
still
Yeah, no,
Yeah, it
that's
has
not
to be-
better, but it's
is
not
a
fine.
federal.
Yeah.
$7.25.
Yes, $7.25.
It was $7.25 here in New York. That's what I'm
Yeah,
saying.
yeah. So I mean,
the whole battle to try and raise it from $7.25.
Right now.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
And see,
yeah.
they tell you, but they try to tell you on Atlanta.
Spain,
but
a
they try
Crumbs
to tell-
cupcake costs $4.
But they try to tell you on Atlanta though.
cupcake.
that
But Crumb
everything else
Cupcakes is out of
cheaper.
business.
Right.
Everything is
'Cause
cheaper,
people
so
couldn't
they
afford
can pay
it.
you less, but
On minimum
not
wage.
really. Not everything's not really cheaper. You know what I'm
No.
saying?
What, going down
McDonald's
south?
Yeah, McDonald's is cheaper, but everything else is not.
Cheaper
no, they say
where?
they can pay you less because the cost of living and stuff is cheaper.
No, it's not really.
Everything
no,
is
it's
not cheaper.
No, it's not.
McDonald's is half the price, but that's it.
Gas,
Like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
gas is cheaper down
a
south.
little bit, but it's
Yeah.
starting to catch up though.
Yeah, gas
Yeah.
is cheaper.
It's
but
not that much cheaper.
Yeah, it used to be a lot cheaper. It's not as much cheap. And
Orange juice is crazy.
orange is crazy everywhere.
Drop a can of orange juice.
and you got two boys. Lord have mercy.
Like, you gotta make
You better
life-
take stock.
Cereal
You better
is
put.
sick.
You better get stock in
It got
Tropicana.
to the point where you had to make life decisions at the pump. Like, okay, am I gonna get 5
That's
gallons
right.
of gas
That's right.
or a gallon of milk?
That's
3
right.
gallons of gas. Like, you know what I'm saying? You have to make life decisions. Like, and you shouldn't
It's
have to.
outrageous.
Now,
Yeah.
now let's get into the Independent Democratic Conference. All right, and I want to make for listeners that this is totally different from the Westchester Democrats. Those guys just don't like Reggie Lafayette. So that's the difference.
Who's Reggie Lafayette?
He's the Democratic chair of Westchester County.
Oh, okay.
Those Westchester Independent Democrats, they're Democrats. They just don't like the leadership. So I don't want people to hear what we're talking about and get it a little confused on what's going on. One is state and one is local, and the Independent Democrats just have a little difference in the way the leadership is handled in the Democratic Party. And I think that's good because that's part of the process, right?
Right.
Okay. Now, on the state level, the Independent Democrats Conference, how did that form? And from your opinion, why did it form?
I've never really been able to say why. I could tell you in 2010, Jeff Klein decided that he no longer wanted to conference with the
Was
the
that when you
Democrats.
became?
No. I
Oh,
didn't
this is-
become leader
oh,
until
okay.
2012.
Okay.
Yeah, no,
Okay.
he was he was not happy with the leadership at that point. He said, and at that point it was Senator Sampson.
Right. Oh,
And
right.
so
Oh, yeah. It
he-
was Sampson. That's right. It was
Yeah,
Sampson. Mhm.
Yeah, and so he formed his own group, and the Republicans were the majority at that time, and as your listeners probably know, whoever's the majority are the people who have more resources. They have the say in the policy
Right.
making.
Right.
So the Republicans were in the majority in 2010, and Jeff's group sort of just kind of, they were independent. When we had the elections again in 2012, this was following redistricting, which happens after the census every 10 years.
Right.
They thought that the Democrats were going to take the majority, and they did everything they could. They gerrymandered the lines. I had a line that was just a compact rectangle, and now my lines have been drawn so that it's a smiling old man profile with the
And we're gonna talk about the whole gerrymander thing too.
Yeah, so they did it. They added a seat. We had 62 senators. They added another one to make it 63. So they did everything
Really?
they could. Yeah, and because they wanted to keep the majority. As
Right.
it turned out, the voters came out and voted in a majority of Democrats. There were 33 Democrats voted in. So what happened is that Senator Klein, with his 5 people, then joined the Republicans who were in the minority and said, okay, let's have co-leadership with me as the leader of my group
yeah.
and you Republican leader of your group, and will show that we'll have a majority coalition.
Right.
And he said the same thing. He didn't like Sampson or whatever, so he's going to work with them. However, in December, my conference elected me leader.
Right.
And but he still had made this deal with the Republicans. So the governor said that he wasn't going to get involved in it. He just wanted to judge it with what happened in terms of his policy initiatives.
Right.
And so, meanwhile, we had some repair to do in terms of how people saw our Democratic conference. And I will say right now, we have great senators. I got them from upstate. I got them from downstate. I have more women in my conference, more people of color. So we have more diversity. I've got an openly gay I've got a real mix of people who represent the state extremely well. And we proved that for the past 2 years, that we're interested in jobs, we're interested in the economy, we're interested in justice, we're interested in ethics, we're interested in everything. But the Republicans, with this leadership with the independent Democrats, as I said, did not allow us to raise the minimum wage in a way that was respectful, frankly, to these low-wage workers.
Right.
Did not want to do ethics reform, did not want to do campaign finance reform, did not want to pass the Women's Equality Act with all.
Really?
No. So even the governor at the end, as did Mayor de Blasio, as did the Working Families Party, as did rank and file Democrats, said this cannot stand. So this time around in November, when people go back to the polls and hopefully once again vote for, I would hope, a majority of Democrats.
Yes.
Jeff Klein has said that his group will partner with my group.
Well, he had no
and
choice. He had no choice at this point.
And form a coalition government with me or my group. Assuming I'm reelected.
Yeah, you will be.
And as opposed to
he said, yeah, you will be
by the grace of God. And we these things. But anyway, at least Democrats will be able to move forward, and that makes a difference in so many ways. Like I said, we have a very, very diverse conference. When we were able to do things, we were able to repeal the Rockefeller drug laws.
Right.
We have been able to create an environment that at least will support re-entry and try and make it a better educational system for everyone. So, there are things that we can, will, and must do that I think as policymakers will really not only advance, general New Yorkers' agenda, but really be able to move forward a lot of the progressive things that we haven't been able to do.
Well, that's good. I think I was up there in Albany, and I was totally confused, when Senator Malcolm Smith said, "Oh, we got to go meet the Independent Democrat conference." I was like, "Well, who's these guys?"
Right.
and I saw Jeff Klein say, "Well, what's going on?" And I was kind of taken aback because at that time Senator Smith was part of the Independent Democrat conference, and and he was whistling us around, and he took us there, and I was like, okay, I'm lost. I'm lost at words that they split it like this.
Yeah.
But I guess for that time being, it was working for them. But like you said, there was some pieces of legislation that they voted against, like the racial profiling. I believe it was the racial profiling legislation that they voted against. And
well, I don't believe anything like that ever came up.
What was it? What was it that it was something? I'm not too sure. It was something that was really important to minorities, and I think it didn't.
Oh, you know what I think you're talking about? You're talking about the decriminalizing low levels of marijuana. It was in conjunction with the stop and frisk.
The stop and frisk.
Right.
It was the stop and frisk.
that never came up. But that's what I'm saying. There were certain things that because these two groups had the power to cancel each other out.
Right.
So if the Republican didn't agree, then the Democratic independent people couldn't advance it.
Right.
And by the same token, the other way around.
Right.
That leads me to where I wanted to go. For the average person, and you started talking about, when the president says something, the average person doesn't know this. The president says all these things he's going to do.
Right.
And then then you may have a Republican. He's a Democrat. You may have a Republican House.
Congress, right.
And then how does that now when things don't get done now? When the House doesn't approve a lot of the stuff he does, and then they say he does not doing all this, how does that work when he, the balance and all that?
It works pretty much the way you say. I mean, the president may say, I want to do this or that, and then just like on the state level, the governor said, okay, I want to raise the minimum wage to this or that.
Right.
Then it has to go to, in our House, the Assembly and the Senate. Same thing on the federal level. When the president says he wants to do this, it has to go to the Senate and it has to go to the House of Representatives. These are called bicameral legislatures. It has to be approved exactly the same way in both houses in order for it to become law. And so the president has to work hard to negotiate with both houses and make sure that somehow this gets accepted. Sometimes you have houses, even if they're different parties, that want to work with whoever it is, the governor, the
I've
president,
heard presidents actually cross the
to
aisle
get
and
something
reach
done. Okay,
yeah. They said Reagan
then,
was good at that, crossing the aisle or something.
and they said Lyndon Johnson was, this kind of person too, and then sometimes, but I said that's when people really want to work with you,
right?
And then you have people who like no matter what, and I think you saw that in terms of the Republican leader on the congressional levels, like, my big job is to make sure that
he doesn't get elected again.
President Obama never gets elected again. So so it depends. I mean, what people really have to understand is that they need to send public servants to work for them.
Right.
If it's only about the person saying, I got this job and now I'm powerful, now you have to kiss my ring, now you have to be scared of me, that's not public service.
Even dealing with the president dealt with that, saying now, okay, I can't be reelected again. Maybe now the silliness can stop. It's only increased though.
Well, because
what I'm saying? It's not about him not being reelected.
Now they're talking about 2016. Now they want to make sure that maybe another Democrat doesn't get elected, that Hillary doesn't get elected. People get confused about what it is they are sent to do. And like I said, if it becomes about power, if it becomes about them, if it becomes about sabotaging somebody's legacy or record, they don't serve the people.
I don't understand how that doesn't trickle down. Basically, say I'm a Republican and I put you there.
Right.
And we need certain things done.
Right.
But you're fighting against the president and you're not letting anything go. You're not doing anything for me either. At this point, you know what I'm saying? So you're not doing any good for me. You're just stopping everything.
Well, and you know
what I'm saying?
I agree.
And you're putting yourself out there. So now the other side is not going to work with you. So the person I put there, I put you there. You're not doing anything for me.
Well,
so you got to go now, and that person still keeps his job.
But you have to understand that a lot of these people came. I mean, especially these extreme Tea Party people. I mean, they don't believe in government. Many of them.
No, they don't.
So they come with an idea that, government is the enemy and we have to dismantle it, and I'm coming in there to tear it all down. So it's very hard to build something.
Well, that goes, that leaks into gerrymandering because a lot of these congressmen are in such a safe district that they could be stupid, and it's really stupid because how do you want to go against minimum wage when you have a district that's poor?
Right.
That's actually poor. Well, let's go to the caller first before.
Caller, you were on People Before Politics Radio. State your name and your question or statement.
Start now?
Start now, yes.
Hi, this is Gail Baxter.
Hey, Gail. Yay.
Hi, Gail.
I am listening to this show. It's so funny, just trying to be on the phone and still listen. So, Senator Cousins, thank God you're on this show. I mean, I'm so grateful. And your explanation in sequence is wonderful. I just wish you could put it in a pamphlet and I could read it to many of the people who remain confused.
Well, Gail, where my office is. You should come and sit with me and ask me the questions, and I will write the answers, and we can put it in a pamphlet.
There you go.
This is not that hard.
I know. I mean, I think it's fabulous because most of the people that I see, and I can say it's a lot of people, it becomes overwhelming.
Yeah.
They are confused. And when Damon talks about independent Democrats, that's good. And the independent Democrats, they have one angle. Either they're invested in the issue well, they're just not going to vote because they don't think it's going to move.
Right.
And that becomes kind of crazy. These are people who don't vote just Democrat because they are Democrats. But I did have a question, and I was just very interested. We hear a lot in the community about the reentry young men and women who come back, no jobs, blah, blah, blah. And you mentioned that your conference has done a lot to move this issue along. But I was just wondering, can you give me just one example? Is there something that community leaders, organizers can use when they're fighting for the people who are returning from incarceration?
Well, Gail, I mentioned the fact that we were able to do a lot when we were in the majority. And so that was from 2009, 2010. That's when we were able to repeal the Rockefeller drug laws, at least the majority of them, as well as put resources into various communities and community organizations that were, designed or had already been functioning as resources for people re-entering. When we lost our majority in 2010 and haven't been that's when the policy making gets shifted, you see? So that the kinds of emphasis on trying to make sure that those reentry programs were there no longer existed. So that's why I say it's important as people approach this election to allow us, because even the governor, I mean, he's talking about closing prisons and the fact that we have managed to close more prisons than, I guess, it's probably more prisons have been closed during his tenure than ever before. So that's a good thing.
Yes.
But he doesn't have right now a Senate that is understanding how important it is to create the reentry support systems so that we can, so this November when people vote, they have to vote with their interests at heart. And so this is one of those things that our conference, the Democrats, really understand that it's important to not criminalize. We incarcerate more people than almost everybody else everywhere in terms of our country. So we've got to find a way where we can educate people more, create more opportunities. Find ways for them to realize their potential, as well as where we can, minimize incarceration and have alternatives. And if you have to be incarcerated once you've paid your debt to society, you should have a way to re-enter it.
Right. I mean,
exactly. And the unfortunate thing, and I love to know this and will always repeat it, but a lot of people don't know it. It remains something out there, and it's not working. And really, as the beginning of the show when you talked about minimum wage, all of this stuff links up.
Exactly. And the other thing people should know is once they pay their debt, for the most part, many of them could vote again. And that's the other thing that people don't recognize. That they
that's something that.
Yep.
Running for city council in Mount Vernon, I ran into so many young brothers that had felonies, but they didn't know that they could register to vote. They thought just because they had the felony that their voting rights was completely stripped. There's a pool of untapped voters because of the lack of education and the lack of knowledge that they can actually vote.
That's right.
And there's a reason for that. There's people that they wouldn't be voting for. They don't want you to know
that's
that.
That's exactly
that's
right.
right.
And
that's
women are in the state like 54% of the vote, but on a national level, I think I saw something that there was maybe only 46% of black women who actually vote. I mean, there is a lot.
That's crazy. And these pieces of laws and legislations affect them. I mean, like people. Listen, everybody has their issues, pros and cons with Brother Obama. Yeah, and that's their own personal opinion. But one thing that I believe that he stressed, was he didn't put a color on it, a lot of times, the bill is for black people, but we ain't got to pull a color on it.
Right.
Right.
Just to say, this is a black bill. No, he wasn't. He says, listen, I want to deal with income inequality. I want to deal with single mothers. I want to deal with incarceration rates. He's dealing with black folks. So I don't know how we could get upset to say that he's not doing anything or passing anything, for black people. But one thing that we did learn from this presidency, that the president can't do it by himself. It takes the House, it takes the Senate, it takes Congress.
It takes all the people.
That's
right.
And he
right.
said that when he ran.
That's exactly right.
That was his whole thing. I'm not going to be able to do this.
Right, that's right.
Like,
That's
we're
right.
all going
That's
to.
right.
We all are
Right.
going to do this.
That's
Right.
exactly
That's
right.
all he promised, and he didn't get that. So of course he's not able to be as successful as he said he would be.
Right.
So Gail Baxter talked about the incarceration. I just wanted to make an announcement that on October 22nd, they're having a national day of protest to stop police brutality, repression, and the criminalization of a generation. Where will you be? What will you do on October 22nd, Wednesday, 1 p.m.? Gather at Union Square, march to Times Square.
Man,
And I'm going
I
to
don't
post it
know.
on Facebook.
I'll meet
for
them at
everyone.
Times Square.
Yeah, I know.
But Cynthia's kids gotta be at Union Square holding the sign. They're gonna be upset.
I march.
Saying, Uncle
right?
David don't let me do
I
this.
march. My sons have to march with me. Their community service is marching because they have to do it for school, and they don't want to march with me. So I found out why.
Why?
Uncle Damon doesn't march. Uncle Damon we take the pictures of him in the beginning of the march.
They're at the march,
Then
right?
we jump inside the car. We go
At
eat.
the march.
and
Get some
then we leave
pancakes.
At the end of the
Get some pancakes and drive to the end of the march and take some more pictures.
I just want to add, Damon could not march and keep his bow tie straight.
There you go. There
I
you
know
go.
Damon
So
doesn't.
that message came from Shaw. That message
Uh,
came from Shaw.
yeah,
You know,
yeah, Shaw-
do that every Friday.
And,
Shout out to
Yeah.
Frank.
Yeah, we support you and we shouting you out, Shah. Shah's a good brother. He's one of the peacekeepers too with Captain Dennis Muhammad, and they're doing good work out there in Queens.
Shout out to Captain Dennis Muhammad.
Yeah, shout out to Captain Dennis Muhammad. He's gonna come back on the show too and talk about bringing the peacekeepers to Westchester and bringing it back and not. This year we are talking about not just having a single city as
But the
peacekeepers.
Westchester
We're having the
peacekeepers.
Westchester peacekeepers, so
Right.
we could bring the numbers together and then support each city
right.
and break down the barriers between the cities and the men.
and
So we're going to
That is
change
a
it.
good thing.
We're going to change it up a little bit to see because it got a little personality driven the last time, so we want to change that. King Jenkins, County Legislator King Jenkins is outside. He could come in.
Okay.
Yeah,
and I
yeah,
just
bring
want to
him in.
say before that, you are listening to
Yeah.
Black Westchester's People Before Politics. Check out blackwestchester.com. News with a black point of view. And now we welcome our county legislator,
County Legislator, he could come on in.
King
Jenkins.
Jenkins. Hey, how are you
Hey,
doing,
and
sir?
we,
How you doing?
hand
How
clap,
you
hand
doing?
clap with
Yeah,
Jenkins.
Hand clap.
Yeah, yeah.
AJ don't know what he's doing.
No. Don't put that on me like that.
Hey, what's up? We want to welcome him. And I'd like to say,
Whoa.
he found the button.
Found another way to do it.
Ken, just pull the mic up to you. There you go.
22 million black
He done messed up. See, he was doing
Americanism
good.
are waking up.
There you go.
It does the whole playlist.
Oh,
This is not
okay.
what we use normally.
Oh,
I
okay.
pulled something else up to make it work.
It's all right. It's all
Yeah.
right. We want to welcome County Legislator King Jenkins to the table, the People for Politics. This is his first time. This is his first time on the show.
Yes.
Yeah, we was trying to get him when we was on Blog Talk Radio. Just couldn't work it out, but I'm glad we got a new day, the new time, and he's here. So that's great. Welcome.
Thank you for having me here.
And I like to say he should have been county exec.
You're gonna get a chance.
Maybe next time.
You will get a chance.
Maybe next time. Well, Ken, welcome. We was just talking about government, how it works from a state level with Senator Cousins, and we would like to get into how it works on a county level. We had Lyndon Williams here
Twice.
Twice, yeah. He's he likes the show, man. He's coming.
He's really adamant about like making it work on Memorial Field, and that's one of my passions too. So
Right.
he definitely comes to talk about that.
Right,
and
he
other
loves to
things,
talk
too.
about Memorial Field, but he was also talking about because there was a recent poverty rally in White Plains,
Yep.
and he wanted to talk about what we were doing, what y'all guys was doing on a county level. You know, we was talking about increasing the minimum wage and income inequality and everything like that. So, you could chime in with whenever you want. You know.
No, absolutely. I mean, well, first, thank you for having me here with State Senator Stewart-Cousins. It's always good to be right around the leader.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
that kind of thing. We know how that is. But as far as the things that were going on, whether it was with the poverty rally, whether it's Memorial Field, whatever the things that are going on, it all works together. So this is so essential what you all are doing. All the things that to make sure that the information is getting out and people are getting understanding on what they can do.
Right.
So many people think that they're hamstrung and they're not able to do anything.
Right.
And the fact of the matter is, the more information that comes out, the better that
Yes.
people can respond to it. We did have the folks from Community Voices heard up at the County Board of Legislators.
Oh,
to
they did go.
Yep, they
Good,
absolutely
good.
did, and
That's
they
great.
came and they spoke about the rally and the things that they were looking for, and that's why it is so important that we make sure to get all the folks engaged and understand, even if they think that everything is fine as far as Senator Stewart-Cousins is concerned, but to talk to their friends throughout the internet world that you all are working with to make sure that she just doesn't get the simple majority, that's a strong majority,
Right.
because all those things work together, whether it's the minimum wage, whether it's for women's equality, whether it's things that we're investing in and how we make those investments. That's what things are, how things work. So
Right.
Whether the folks from Community Voices Heard came out and they spoke about increasing the minimum wage, well, the County Board of Legislators certainly can enact something at the local level as far as prevailing wage, but it doesn't mean a thing if we don't have brothers and sisters that are prepared to be able to do the job, because we don't do the right investments in our community college to make sure that we have a real diversity program. Senator was working on that for several years, trying to make sure that we have a DBE program that's a real DBE program, and utilizing the county's about $85 million a year of investment, which comes out to, when you stretch it out, to $850 million of investment every year to make sure that those dollars get distributed appropriately. And how do we make sure that we have all of the folks getting those jobs that they can return back into the community and make sure that they're uplifting. So that's really been a challenge, because everyone would like to give lip service and say, hey, they'll roll out a person or two to say how successful their program has been. But when you look at it and see what's the real investment and what's the real results of that, is non-existent.
Right.
So
Right.
so we have all those kind of things going on, big brother.
Right. That's great. And what is the outreach in Westchester County as far as a lot of Democrats like to say we outnumber the Republicans 2-1, right? But according to the last election, a lot of Democrats crossed over. I mean, just by the numbers. If we're gonna go by the numbers, what are we doing differently this governor's election? Because even if Governor Cuomo wins, if he doesn't win Westchester, it looks bad. So what is the Democrats doing to really push to make sure that Governor Cuomo gets a W in Westchester? He lives here. Astorino lives here. He's the county exec. To me personally, this is ground zero of the election, whether he wins or not.
Cuomo lives in Westchester?
Yeah.
Well, everybody doesn't know that, so
Yeah.
No, he doesn't.
Excuse AJ. He just came. He just came back from Atlanta. So
Somebody
he's
said-
back.
And Astorino's from.
He's Westchester too.
Yeah.
What part of? He's from Mount Vernon or something?
No,
Oh.
no, no.
No,
he's Mount
let's
Pleasant.
not. We're not going to talk about that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And John, the I guess one of the candidates for AG is a Westchester person as well.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Everybody's from West. Like
Yeah.
they said, the NFL commissioner that he lives somewhere in Westchester.
That's right.
Well,
Yeah, when they went
Yeah.
in that Ray Rice thing. was going on.
see, this is what
Yeah.
I say.
My constituent.
Right. Okay.
This is what I say. I always say this all the time. when we talk about social issues and we pinpoint it into Westchester, it's a hard battle. Why? Because you have CEOs and big companies live in Westchester. You have, at one time, almost all of Obama's cabinet was from Westchester.
Wow.
Or had roots in Westchester.
Right.
So you're talking, Westchester's a powerful county.
Oh, yeah.
They have powerful people in the county. So when we're talking about these social issues, when we're talking about all these issues, I mean, we have to push hard because we have powerful people pushing back.
Right.
We have powerful people pushing back.
Well,
So
to
answer the question.
To answer the first question is to say what things are going on. One is that what we have to do better job at is making sure that people understand why they should get out each and every time.
Yes.
Not just when it's the president running, right? And we all get that, right?
Right.
And all of us that have been engaged in it understand why when people go, it's our president and we got his back. Okay, that's good, right?
Right.
We need to make sure we have Senator Stewart-Cousins back, and that
Right.
doesn't just mean here in Yonkers, and in Greenburg, and in Scarsdale, and New Rochelle, where her district is. I did get everything.
Plains,
and White
too.
Plains. Oh, sorry about that. Right. So make sure that the folks get out for that. But in Westchester County, you started with saying that we say it was a 2-to-1 Democratic majority, and
Right.
it is. But that doesn't mean everyone comes out to vote each and
Right.
every time.
Right.
Last time, we looked across the board from all the county elections. We won every race except one, right?
Right,
So
right.
it's not a question, do we not have the votes? Do we not have people coming out? We may not always have the right candidates taking the,
Or
right,
the
message
right message.
to the right people. And
Right.
certainly there were a group of people that started with you, DK, that said, hey, we think that things didn't happen the right way, so they skipped over that. Right.
Right.
And that's what the numbers show. That's what I was actually trying to look up and pull up those numbers because we do have that. But for this time, it's important for people to understand how all those pieces fit together, and to make sure that that people's voices are heard. And that is throughout the counties because
Pun intended. Yes, community voices.
see how that right? You like how I did that, right? I'm trying to work it, AJ. So, but to make sure that when the people look around and they say whether they're in Peekskill or whether they're in White Plains or whether they're in New Rochelle or
Right.
whether they're
Right.
in any of in Ossining and our bigger municipalities when they're in the town of Greenburg, and to come out and make sure that the impact is being felt across the whole thing. Because what the Republicans did, because they're smart, right? They said, well, we're going to put you all asleep, right? And we let people be asleep.
Right.
So we have county court races, family court races. We have a county court race that is not a race. She already won. There's no one running against her. Right? She's a
Right.
Democrat, and she has every line. Right?
Right.
We have 2 family court judges running. Guess what? There's no opposition for those.
Right.
We have some assembly seats. There's no opposition against those. Right?
It's like Wrangell in Harlem.
He
He won one election, 98%. The other 2% just didn't vote. You know what I'm saying?
So, but at the end of the day, what happens is all those things make a difference because you said both Governor Cuomo and County Executive Astorino live in Westchester County and is ground zero at one level. Senator would tell you that was part of the reason and rationale when she first ran for Senate because
Right.
it was such a good demographic
Right.
for Democrats to look at and see how the message was working.
Right.
You know,
Right.
because we have such that the big dichotomy between people that are CEOs as well as working folks, and
Right.
we have all of the range that we have to go with. But we have to keep having these kind of conversations
Right.
to say you need to vote all the time. It doesn't matter if you think the person's going to win. They look at the numbers. They look at my numbers. They
Right.
look at Senator's numbers.
That's right.
One of the things that would happen to me when we were going around for county executive was people could pull out the numbers and say, well, you didn't have as big a number as somebody else. Well, you know what? Last 3 times, no one ran against me. So you know what? I had, 100% of that vote. So if
Right.
you want to go
Right.
through numbers, we could do
That's
that
Right.
too.
Right.
That's right.
But the people need to come out and again, when they look at this stuff and they say, wait a minute, for Governor Cuomo, well, it looks like he's going to win. Well, that's putting people asleep too.
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
So it looks that way. No, they need to invest their money, and they're doing that stuff. And the chairwoman is here, from the Yonkers Democratic Committee, Senator Brandon, making sure that information gets out. But the facts are that if we don't have people come out in Westchester County and say, hey, this is what's happening, then Senator doesn't get the same boost because she don't need to worry about here. She shouldn't be worried about here.
That's
She's
right.
trying.
Right,
She got a
Right,
big state
right,
thing
right,
that's
right,
going
right,
on,
right.
and there's all kinds of drama.
No, and,
That's true.
right.
But I always, I always worry about, because and Ken is always a big picture painter, and that's important. But he and I both know that all politics are
It's local. That's
So
right.
you don't be thinking, oh, I got to do this and
You
that,
say think
and not
global,
take care
think
of home.
globally, act local.
That's
Yeah,
exactly right. So, and that's why even my race is, I mean, I have not met my opponent, or I think I met him once. But,
Caller, please hold.
But the reality is, I'm running a race
Yep.
because I need for people to understand that I'm interested in them, and I don't want to put anybody to sleep. I want people to know that the first time I ran for Senate, I lost by 18 votes
Wow.
in the
Yeah, yeah.
longest
Right, where's the clapping
contested
at?
Oh, that was
race
crazy.
in New York State history, and that 18 votes served as a powerful reminder for everybody, not just my side,
But
because my
everybody,
opponent only won by 18
Right,
votes.
right,
Right.
And if you say, "Oh, well, you lost by 18,000 votes," everybody's like, "Well, what could I do about that?" But
Right.
18 votes,
18 votes.
And I was-
you could have got
Very
somebody
Right.
off
Right.
of the
And
couch.
I was
Right.
just going to
That's
use the
right.
example. Locally, the mayor only won by 101 votes, and that's 101. 18 is even worse. So I
Exactly.
mean,
Right.
like you could have got
Exactly.
20 of your friends and just
That's
went to the
exactly
vote.
right.
Like,
Everybody could
Right.
have done
Right.
a little
Right.
bit more just to urge that person there. So people have to understand that their votes really do matter, and that's why I go out and I ask for votes every single day.
Now let me ask you this. Now, even in losing, if you had a large show of numbers, the
That's
other
right.
politicians
That's right.
still have to
That's
pay
right.
attention
That's exactly
to
right.
whatever the
That's
issues
exactly
were
Exactly,
that all
exactly,
your people
exactly.
did.
That's
So
exactly right.
Exactly.
even if you lose,
Oh, yeah.
you
That's
still
exactly right.
make
Oh,
your
yeah.
voice heard, like that
Oh,
you're
yeah, of
somebody
course.
that they need to deal with.
That's
Right.
exactly
Right, and
now,
that needs to be explained.
those 18 votes were out of 100 plus thousand votes.
Yep.
Right,
So
right.
it wasn't like there were,
Right.
15 votes, 1,500 votes. I mean, this was over 100,000 votes.
That's crazy.
And so when the person who won, you better believe when he stood up and said, "Okay, I won, but you better know I'm coming to make sure that I'm going to
Right.
make
That's
all
right.
of you."
Right.
But of course, the next time, again, we did what President Obama did here in Yonkers. In terms of getting grassroots excited and involved and
Right,
engaged
right.
and empowered.
Oh,
Because
see,
again,
but that's
they knew.
That's right.
Oh, just go to the caller
We
so we
got
can.
caller. People before politics. State your name and your question or comment.
This is Lena Anderson from the White Plains Greenberg NAACP.
Lena, hey Lena.
How are you, Lena?
Calling, number one, I want to thank the senator for her diligence. She showed up at our NAACP conference, and it's always a pleasure to see her, to have her tell her story, which helps people understand the real problem we have with navigating the structures that lead us on to success. And then in terms of voting, I am going to try to have a boots on the ground strategy where we have destinations at every poll where people can meet on corners and walk in groups to vote. Because I think there's a constituency out there that doesn't believe black people vote. So I want to encourage all of the branches to have boots on the ground walking teams to the polls. And I'd like to know what the senator thinks of that.
I like that. I really do like that. And while you were saying that, Lena, it occurred to me something else. We have changed the way we vote now. It used to be you go into the booth, you close the curtain, you flick a few flicks, these different levers, and then you move out. Now it's different. Now there are people who have to know they've got to,
Gotta
color
be
in
computer-
bubbles,
you gotta be computer literate.
and you
Yeah.
gotta, put your stuff in a sleeve. And I think there's a whole group of people who
Intimidated.
are intimidated,
Yeah.
who don't know how to do that,
Yep.
and don't want to appear stupid
Right,
or
right, right.
uninformed. And so I think that this kind of a group conversation may serve a purpose in that way too, to encourage people to go in with people who are going to be doing what they're doing. And
Right, we can help them navigate the process.
Exactly.
I know we've had workshops before on the new voting methods, and they have not been well attended.
yeah. I think
if we actually get people who are willing to go vote, and we have that chat on the way in terms of you know what to expect.
That's
Do
right.
you need any help with this, that, or the other? We can sort of help them navigate that.
That's right.
But it is an issue because what we know is that we've done a good job of voter registration, but it seems that even though we have voters registered, they don't necessarily get out to vote. So we want to do something to encourage them to actually get out. And we'll pray that it doesn't rain because that'll be a concern.
Then we don't want. But Lena, while you're here, though, I want to thank you for your diligence because
Yes.
you know you are out there.
Give
you're
Lena
on
a
the
hand
front
clap.
line. Yeah, give
All right,
Lena.
a hand clap. Yeah.
It's what we're supposed to do, though, you know,
Well-
when we talk about bringing people along and we talk about service. And I'll tell you, right now we're looking for officers and people to get on board, and it has been like pulling teeth.
Yeah.
I am ashamed to say that our people don't understand the value of helping one another and
Right.
being servants. So we really have to stress that, and we have to help our younger people, our young adults, understand time management, because the big excuse is, I don't have time. So we got to share with them that if they don't put in the time now,
That's right.
it will hurt them later.
That's right.
Yes.
That's right.
Yeah. And
One of the things that
go
I
ahead.
wanted to add was that we discussed it before in regards to the education in the school. So during election time, I usually have elections in the schools where the students have to vote. And on their way to vote, there's different facts, historical timeline facts on when blacks could vote, when they couldn't vote, what they went through in order to vote. And so now those individuals, we had one gentleman up here the other day, he's now in college and things of that nature, and that makes an impact. When they came in the day after Barack Obama became president of the United States, they felt like
nine,
they
right?
were a
That's
part
right.
of that. So and schools need to start making that a part of their curriculum, where these who's going to vote, who's up for election, who would you vote for, why would you vote for them, cite evidence, Common Core, right, and vote and post it up.
right.
Yeah, that's a challenge because all of our teachers are not on board. Many of them are just frustrated.
Well, they need to get it
But
together.
I agree with you that working with students is a very viable way to ensure that they will be voters in the future. But where we are right now is getting people, especially young adults ages 18 to 25, to take time out and understand the importance of their vote. There's so many who told me when I was trying to register them, oh, it don't matter. Our vote doesn't count. Look at all the hypocrisy. Look at all the corruption. And I say to them, but don't you understand that this is the only way to change it? This is the vehicle we have. Otherwise, people wouldn't be trying to take it away from us. And they hear that. It doesn't seem to change their hearts at the moment.
No, I think that I know that if you continually go out and you continually feed them, and you have to continually feed them. There's sometimes when Damon and I, we go into the schools together and we double dose them with information as to what is going on in your community right now, and then they start asking us questions. Well, how can we change this?
Right.
They
That's
get
right.
upset, and then that's when we go into the voting part. You know, did you go and vote? Nope. You are of age to vote. You should have went out and voted. And if you start voting now and start becoming more part of your community, you will understand exactly what's going on. So we also, from the outside, you know, a lot of people say that the teachers doesn't have time and things of that nature. A lot of teachers want to do it. Trust me on that. I'm an educator, been an educator for more than 18 years. And we want to do that, and we want us to come in and be a part of that. We have to be a part of it. It has to be a village. So I know it can work.
Well, the other thing that happens too is that we're in this kind of instant gratification situation,
Yes,
right?
yes.
And everybody
Low attention
wants,
span, too.
right? They everybody wants everything at this moment. You know, if I come to you and I have this problem and you can't fix it right now, then what do I need you for? And not realizing that that the problem is an important one. The solutions aren't always as easy as you would like them to be.
And then also not all that is on you.
That's exactly right.
Like you can't do it by yourself. And there's those people that are complaining, and I'm not saying everybody,
Right.
but a lot of them are not doing anything, and they're just expecting it to be done for
Exactly.
them. And if they got out and did more, or were educated to do more or encouraged to do
That's
more.
exactly
Because
right.
some of them don't know.
Then
to
things
do
would
more.
move faster for
Right.
everyone.
I've had
So
somebody-
you
I
don't
had somebody-
row the boat by
Right.
getting out of the boat.
I had
Exactly.
somebody-
Exactly.
You gotta stay
Exactly.
in there,
I
man.
had somebody,
Exactly.
I had somebody on my street, when I had interviewed the city council, and then he drove me back home, and then I interviewed the mayor, and he drove me back. It was like, man, don't be doing that and bringing the city council and the mayor on our block. We ain't never had that. Seriously, I had a conversation with somebody.
Wow.
I'm not going to throw them under the bus, but
Right.
they were like, yo, we don't need that over here. You need to know that that's your dude. Like, they didn't know who he was.
Wow.
They didn't know who they didn't know who Rich was.
So we have a couple of
Oh.
comments from individuals on Facebook. Brenda Crump, she said that
Mrs. Crump.
Senator Stewart-Cousins is a true advocate for children and families. Thank you, Senator, for all your support when you were a legislator and councilwoman of the Family Committee.
In the mic, in the mic.
We
in the
also have another one from Ken
Thank you.
Bright. Graham Bright said, glad to hear the senator speak on recent re-entry of our returning citizens. I do hope this become a part of the bigger discussion of justice in the senator's platform, because County Executive Astorino has no interest in quelling violence through education and therapeutic services. Thank you for coming on and keeping people's services relevant first.
Oh, thank you. That's
Well,
very
you know,
nice.
but that goes right to the point, though, that everyone's been talking about, which is one, that if you're not engaged and you're not involved, you sit
Right.
on the sideline and you say, okay, well, why did that happen, right?
Right,
So,
right.
so for Brother Ken, it's suggesting that there's been a reversal of some of the investments that were made when Senator was a county legislator to make sure that those things get back. You know, you got to get out and you have to vote all the time, and you need to understand that your vote does count,
Yes.
Right.
and that people
That's right.
do pay attention to it, even if your legislator, your state legislator, your senator, your local official is blowing the doors off of someone. They listen, right?
Right.
You know, it makes a difference when you look at, even when you go to council members, whether it's citywide like in Mount Vernon or in Yonkers when it is in the districts, they look at the numbers.
Right.
And you know what? You won with 15,000 people voting for you, and you won with 2,000 people voting for you.
Right.
So if your constituents have an issue, they look at it and they average out and they go, okay, well, we're going to go with the 15,000. Right. So that means you need to come out, you need to be engaged, and you definitely have that parts with education. That's why, Lena Anderson and the folks in the NACP, and, as a former NACP president, I will say to you is that there's folks that turn around now and they go, I've been doing this for 18 years. I've been doing this for 20 years. You have stalwarts that have been doing that, and the energy isn't the same.
Right.
Only because you say, how many times we got to keep having the
this
rally,
right,
right?
right,
You
Right,
know?
right. Oh,
And-
trust me, I know about that, bro.
Right, no, DK,
I know. Hey,
Wait,
I'm
exactly.
going to have another one Thursday about something.
but the fact is,
That's why he doesn't walk anymore.
but you have the rally, you have the information, you get the people together, you get the information, you hand it to the people, and then people expect magic to happen overnight. And with the folks that around the political process have learned to do is to manage that particular thing. So the folks that are like Senator that are fighting hard each and every day based on the things, whether it's Lena or DK or you coming out and saying, and AJ, to come out and say, all right, now how do we handle that scenario? How do
Right.
how do we invest in reentry programs because it actually saves us money, right?
Right.
And as opposed to saying we're trying to keep the prison complex going, and not
Right.
no disrespect
See,
to any of those folks.
And Ken, this is the one thing I didn't understand. I mean, and I know it has to be something with the county government and working with, and I guess working with the DA's office or the courts or something like that. If you have a young kid that's maybe 17, 18, all right, he has his GED, he commits, I see kids come in for a cell phone, just an iPhone, right? It's cheaper for us to send them to Westchester Community College for 2 years
Oh, yes.
than to house them at Westchester County
yes.
Development
Not
Corrections.
only is it cheap, I mean, what Andy Spano used to say is that we send somebody to Harvard for the amount of money that we
Right.
spend in that investment. And quite frankly, if we took the money that we spent, one of the objectives I always had was to take 10% of the money we spend in corrections and spend that in youth development programs. That would be $48 million a year.
Right.
So
Right.
we're nowhere close to spending $40
Right.
million a year. We're not
Right.
even close to spending $10 million a year to make sure that we had the proper investments in the community, making sure that folks have books.
Yeah, books.
Yeah, books.
A little thing like books, so that people and having libraries and having community rooms and all those good things that bring things together. We're more interested in whatever that scenario is to say, all right, we're just going to throw away the key. This is ridiculous, right? And as you said, when you have a young person that comes through the system, and they're coming through the system when they're 14 and 15 and 16 years old.
Yep.
If they have a felony conviction, they're done,
Yep.
right?
That's right.
Before their life has even started.
Right, before their life
Adulthood
has
hasn't
started.
even started.
Uh-huh.
Exactly.
And so that's why we have a person here that just posted that said we have to stop the mass incarceration for profits.
Yep.
Right.
And
Right.
the disenfranchisement of our youth.
Somebody
Well, this
said.
is another thing I just wanted to say. One of the things that the governor mentioned in when we were at the NAACP yesterday, and something that I've worked on as well, is this raise the age, and
Yep.
I'm sure
Right.
Legislator Jenkins as well is raising the age, because we understand that if you start, with a kid, and we're talking about, like you're saying, cell phones, all of a sudden these kids, because they're 16 or 17, they're somehow incarcerated with adults.
Right.
And
Right.
then
And their education is only.
Right. Well, they come out a better
Positive.
criminal.
we all
They come
know,
out a better
we all
criminal.
know what happened. So I mean,
Right.
we've got to look at, we have to look at this holistically,
Yep.
obviously, and that's why the emphasis on universal pre-K, because we already know that if a kid has not had the exposure to vocabulary when they're very young, by the time they're in the 4th grade, they're already charting
Behind.
who's there.
Yeah.
I'm told that people who are looking at how many prisons
Prisons,
to
they
build
are.
From
From
their
third.
test.
are
From their
already
test, yeah.
looking at
Standardized
your
test.
literacy
That's
rate
how they do
when
it.
you're in the 4th grade.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah,
And
and that's
that's
true.
why
And that's true.
Something else that came up, we went to at the UN, a forum on dealing with the prison and education,
Mm.
and one of the things they said, and I don't know if this is true, but they said if you make $28,000-$30,000 or below, you are actually worth more to the county as an inmate than a taxpayer.
Through government grants and allotments.
That's
and
kind of
stuff like
that's
that.
kind of heartening if that's the case. And
It
then
is
what you said, and what
yeah.
you said is about being a better criminal. Then since they're not correcting you, or they're not doing any kind of corrections or
Not at
whatever
all.
they're supposed to do.
Not at all.
So basically, they're recycling you so that you keep coming back.
Well,
so that you keep coming
and
back.
one of the
so
problems-
that you keep coming back.
you know-
and you keep funding this.
But
And
one of the
no
problems,
disrespect,
one
and
of the
then you get
problems.
good salaries like you get.
Well, yeah.
From-
Well,
you know what I'm saying?
you know,
Like,
I could talk.
that's
I could
crazy.
talk that now. I got
Yeah,
9 months. But one of the. Well, I've been talking it for a long time.
Right,
That's just a joke. All you listeners.
Yeah, okay.
But but one of the thing is, a lot of the programs, especially at the county jail, is grant driven. You understand what I'm saying? It's grant. How many inmates you have in the program? So they put inmates in the program that really shouldn't be in there. And it's actually the wrong program. But it's grant driven.
You even told me that somebody told you they got 12 felonies.
Well,
what am I
and
doing?
listen,
What am I even doing in the program? I'm not getting no job when I get out. Why am I even-
Two true stories. I knew a kid from the street, from Greenburgh. They had him in one of the programs, and they was teaching him how to do interviews and everything. And he came out the rec, and he was like, "Yo, Jones, I don't understand why I'm in the program. They're teaching me to do interviews. He had 180 misdemeanors. He said, nobody's hiring me.
Right.
You understand? Nobody's going to hire me with 186.
But see that goes back to the big picture, right?
Right.
So when you go to the business end of that, if we own businesses,
Oh,
right?
yeah. Well, no, you're right. No, you're right.
Because other folks have the same issues.
Thank you.
Yep, that's
but
right, that's
but
right,
they
that's
own
right.
businesses,
That's right.
corporations.
But what happens is when they come back out, they go to Uncle Bob's,
That's
store,
right.
And
That's
they're
right.
able to clean up their stuff, get enough
That's
time
right.
in
Uh-huh.
on a job that they can
Right.
be turned around, and they can leverage that.
Right.
We need to do more of that, and that's why having all the programs together. So it's not just about the reentry program; it's also
Right.
about the economic development programming.
Well, of course.
our DBE program.
Of
because,
course.
you have people that are like my brother Simmons, that which are in their
right.
system that
Right.
they bring people in off from the street because they know how hard the street has
Right.
been, and they turn back and they pay it forward by hiring folks, then they're getting into good jobs. You know, I cannot tell you, I know Senator has this all the time, you know, how many of the union folks come to us all the time and ask us for individuals to get into these apprenticeship programs, but we're like, okay, that sounds cool, right? One of the biggest, you know, discussions is Senator handed that when to me when she went up to being a senator, that locally to say, all right, you have this apprenticeship program, but your apprenticeship program is for 6 years, right? What did that do, right? You know, so you never made it to the level of being what's called a master mechanic. So you
Right.
never went through the whole steps. So all you had was cheap labor, right?
Well,
And-
a lot of time that's the trick. That's the trick.
And-
That's the trick. My son was in something like that, and I got him out because he was working for cheap labor as a carpenter, and he's like, you know, when am I going to get my paperwork? You know, till I had to step in, and then I found out the guy that he was working with wasn't even he wasn't even licensed. So I had to send him to another guy so he could get his certificate.
Right.
And now he's getting ready to get in the union.
That's
But the whole thing is, these are the tricks that we might have to police ourselves, and that's why a lot of the money we don't get in our communities, because there's a lot of tricksters.
Right. Can I change the subject real quick? You said the word police. We talked about with county legislator
Lyndon Williams.
Williams, and we were talking about when the police misabused their power and everything. And he was talking about the county not really having a lot of power to do anything to them because they don't get any real funding or anything from the county, and it comes from the state. And
well, you know,
but I wanted to talk to the senator.
Well, there's two things. One is that, you know, one is that that from a county perspective, there's a lot of influence, right? So it's not a direct hit, if you will, as far as being able to say, well, we're funding this program, but the police academy is run by the county.
Okay.
Right. And that's something that DK and
I'm always screaming about.
No,
Yeah.
but not only screaming about,
no.
is because you can start that. I mean, that's the place to start.
We have to.
Right.
But what about the ones that are already there now?
And
we get past that.
Well, you know, you had brother Adams, Senator Adams went, and now Borough President Adams was working through a scenario of trying to ensure that you had state level influence going on. We were in Yonkers very successful at one point in time in having a subset of a review board type thing, without calling it a review board, but you know, we were able to work through some of that stuff. You have to have a scenario where people have confidence in the system to follow up and to punish those that have misused their power, right?
Right.
No,
No.
basically, when he's saying that the county couldn't do so much and sometimes had to come from the state. Since we had a senator, I wanted to see, you know, as far as what can the state actually do about that? What can we? What if the county can't do that? What's the next level of punishing the department?
Well, it's not punishing it. No, it's not punishing. No. It's not. There was a couple of bills that I mean, Eric Adams had a bill.
Yeah.
I think Senator Lattimore is doing another bill for oversight, independent investigations of police, what questionable police actions. I mean, at the end of the day,
you know,
as
so much
legislation.
of this has to, again,
You have to move up a little bit. Yeah.
Okay, you know, again, like we were talking about, it has to be anything that happens on a state level has to happen in both houses.
Okay.
And has to be agreed by the governor. So it's less complex to get legislation done in more the local levels or the county levels, where you need a simple majority to make something happen, whereas in ours you need the assembly to agree and the Senate to agree, and we've already discussed, you know, a variety of the dynamics. So sometimes, and like you said, you know, we were at the conference yesterday with the law enforcement, and my good friend Dr. Joe Ryan was the keynote speaker, and he's a former professor of mine. He's been there forever, but he was talking about community policing and the value of making sure there's a relationship between the police and the community and so on and so forth. I mean, there are things, obviously, on a local level that we need to begin to do in terms of how police and community interact. And, you know, there's always going to be call for legislation, this and that. But I think, again, just this kind of what we're seeing all, you know, whether it's the video or at least it's raising the conversation about how are we actually going to move forward as community. Police have a hard job, and we respect the job that they do, and but we've got to come. So I think that the local level will be successful as long as again we keep.
Now,
Okay.
how we asked this question with Lyndon too, and when Michael Sussman was here, and Michael Sussman brought up the county legislators using their bully pulpit with the city councils, the different city councils, to push in civilian complaint review boards. Because I know Mount Vernon has it in their charter, and they haven't appointed one person.
Right.
I've been talking, well, Mayor Davis, then Mayor Clayton, then now Mayor Davis again, and and they have refused to do it. I mean, how can we use that bully pulpit? Because when you have a police officer that has cost the city over $1 million,
This is where I was going with
and
that.
he's still on the street.
Right.
You understand? There's a problem and there's a disconnect, and
Exactly.
and the community loses trust.
But then there's a
You know,
problem.
in the
There's
police
a problem
department
with
and the
superiors
city.
that don't do nothing about it.
Right, but
Right.
just to interrupt you real quick, we have Kim Wright that posted that they're having to stop police brutality on October 22nd, 2014 in White Plains, and it's
Okay.
on the corner of Main Street and Mamaroneck. But I just want you to know that I go out, but I've never been really present in Westchester County, because when I come to Westchester County for things like this, there's hardly anybody there.
Right.
Now, when I roll up in the Bronx, we got the whole block blocked out, right? I'm looking for that. So I need something.
Right.
I'm looking for the whole block blocked out. We was me and Damon was standing out there at Martin Luther King statue, and it was 7 of us, and out of 7, 2 were black.
Yes.
So
That is an issue.
I was disenchanted, and my sons were just staring at me.
Like, why are we here, Mom? Why?
Yeah,
Why?
exactly.
So when you go back again to the whole thing again, to say first, there has to be a recognition.
Right.
The first recognition is when you talk to the police, and one of the things that's always been an advantage for me, and Brother DK knows this, is my dad was a cop. So when I talk to them, I get to talk to them at that level.
Right.
Everyone doesn't have that ability to do that, to come in and say, wait, just like there's a bad garbage man, like there's a bad programmer,
Right.
just like there's there's bad elected officials,
Right.
there's
Right.
bad police officers, right?
Right.
Exactly.
And the question is, what are you going to do when you find that bad police officer, other than say, all right, we're just going to put our arms around them and try to cover them, right?
Right. Right.
That's what the difference is. What we have to insist on from everybody is the level of accountability, to say, you know what, this is what you were given, this is what job you decided to get involved with, and you know what, you have this level of accountability. And whether it's talking to the folks that are the leaders of unions and that kind of thing, to say,
Right.
look, hey, if somebody's wrong, they're wrong, right? And
Right.
you got to call them out on that.
Right.
And that's part of the community conversation, and that's
Right.
what the community policing model is. Because once that breaks down, once the pieces
Right.
break down, there's no trust, and now you're trying to build trust where there's
But
no foundation.
and you're
to
right.
sit.
But how do we get these local elected officials to understand that? See, we understand it, and a
well,
lot of
two
people
of us understand it.
No, I'm not talking. I'm not
Lyndon
talking.
understands
No, I'm talking about the city council, because when you're dealing with a specific city, you got to deal with the city council. You have to deal with the mayor. So how do we? To this point, how do we get them to understand? Like, listen, this is just not good for the community.
They're not going to
It's
understand it
good
until
for the-
something happens to them,
It's
man.
good for the police
They're
officer.
not going to understand until something happened to them.
Well,
Damon, you
I'm
already
just-
know that.
well, hey, listen,
check
I'm
it
just-
out.
Or
Let me
the
tell
fact
you-
talk show.
I'm in the-
We got to put the question out.
Or
Okay,
the
well,
fact
I'm
that-
All right, it's a talk show.
Let me give you the answer, 'cause I
Or
know they both said it. It popped off, bam, bam, and here it is to me. They're not going to do anything until something happens inside their house.
or the fact they're about
All right.
Right.
Not only that, but not only that. Can I tell you that at work, I work in the South Bronx. I work about 5 blocks away from the Bronx Zoo. At least 60% of the students that are in my school, and that number is low, are living in shelters. Wow. So now you see the dynamics, the characteristics of those individuals. When I say something to them like, listen, call the police, they look at me like I am out of my ever-loving mind. This stuff will happen all weekend. I know something's popping off right now.
Right now.
Tomorrow, Columbus Day. Monday and Tuesday, they're going to come in, they're going to come talk to Miss Turnquest-Jones. Oh, you didn't call the police?
No.
You got to call the police about this. They don't want to call the police. And so you have people don't want to have to call the police, and then you have your higher elected officials that don't want to do anything about the police.
Okay, I just got one last question.
Okay.
I
won't
just-
answer it.
I got one.
It's about that time.
Yeah, I got
Last
one
5
last
minutes.
question.
He
I got
always
one.
got
Since
last 5
since we're
minutes.
talking about the police, now I don't know if it's in state, but I know Greenberg is going to body cams.
White Plains is doing it now. They said they
No, the police commissioner didn't come, but at least Paul Feiner and his chief came to the NAACP meeting, right, Lena?
Yes.
Is Lena still there?
I'm here.
Yeah, and they
I
said,
want you to make your statement, and then I want to comment on Dr. Khalil Muhammad, okay?
oh yeah,
Yes,
oh
yes,
okay,
yes, yes.
okay,
Let-
and
give 5
so
minutes to that.
so Greenberg is going to body cams. I'm not sure if Yonkers is going to body cams, which they should. We suggested it to Mount Vernon too. Will there be any? I mean, that's the talk of the town. Is there anything in the possible future with the state, with any type of funding or helping these police departments, or from the county?
Well, the question again that you asked about was a financial question. If it cost you $1 million for someone acting badly,
I know.
then you spend $50,000 to make sure that you have all the information, right?
Right.
And in New York City right now, because of the incidents,
Right.
now they're saying, well, we're going to do this trial, right?
Right.
You know, and there's a whole bunch of folks that have been
Right.
pushing that. In Yonkers right now, there's a Justice Department thing going on.
But they've been there forever, man. I mean,
well,
after
well,
a while, it's like, all right,
well,
what is Pete Pereira doing?
Well, Preet is no joke. So when Preet rolls, he waits, but when he rolls out,
Okay.
there's no doubt that what things are happening. So in this case, in our case here in Yonkers, there's been cases that have been overturned, right? You know, convictions overturned, people
Yeah,
released
so
out
from the
early,
late what's been going on,
and,
yes.
and which one? And the NACP was part of that. DKU was part of that to get the information to hand over to folks. And again, that's that long process that Senator was
Right,
talking about.
right.
People were like, well, we want something done now, right? And they had all the names. They had all the same names.
Right. Oh, right. It's
And-
because
and-
it's the same. Actually, it's the same place.
I want
It's never done.
wait. For because we have a very few minutes left. I want
Right.
Lena to say what she's going to say about Khalid.
yes.
And I would like to give you all at least 1 minute.
Right,
each
and then
to-
I have
for
another
closing.
comment from somebody that Myron Miller. He's just asking, have you all discussed restorative practices,
Okay,
more commonly known as restorative justice?
We're not going to be able to
justice,
answer that now. We got to let Lena speak about.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, to be quick, because
Yeah.
what I'm talking about is
2 minutes or less
education.
from
You
me.
know,
Yeah, we got-
30
Yeah,
seconds.
yeah,
book, The
we got a
Condemnation
minute,
of
Lena.
We
Blackness.
got 30 seconds.
Yes.
And he talked about the infrastructure of racism, and he talked about what we're seeing in terms of stop and frisk and the overzealous police, and all these things are the result of a consciousness of fear that's been built up and data-based since the 1890 census. Now, that said, the book is profound. I recommend it to everyone. I'm going to have Khalil Muhammad come back because I don't think he can share that enough.
No, we
But
gotta-
the education
Yeah,
of the
we'll get him
masses,
on
the
show.
education of our people in terms of why we're being perceived the way we are and why it has caused us to even have lesser thinking about ourselves and what we deserve needs to be really dissected before we can act as a unit. We as a people are so easily divided and so hopeless because we're not really aware of this history, this conscientious desegregation and discrimination policy that he speaks of.
Now, I want to thank you.
Thank you, Lena.
We're going to definitely have
And
to
thank
have
you
him
for
on
the
show.
great weekend at the NAACP. I
Yes.
enjoyed
I'm
myself.
so glad you came.
And
Yes.
I want to give both our elected
Yes.
officials a minute wrap up. Last words. Anything you want to say?
I just want to thank you for having me. It's been
Yeah.
quite a pleasure. And I guess if everything can be wrapped up in please stay involved,
Yes.
stay conscious. Education is the key And please exercise your franchise to vote.
And
Yeah.
do you have social
November
media,
4th.
anything someone can reach out to you online? Or
Yes, if they go to my website, Andrea Stewart-Cousins, Senator Andrea Stewart-Cousins, cousins just like the relative, they'll be able to find everything. My Facebook,
Okay.
my Twitter, all of these
Okay.
things.
Yep, and I want to say thank you as well. I mean, people before politics, this is the issue that we need to continue to have these kind of discussions. But also, I want to ask people to keep supporting
Yes.
all of us through this.
Yes.
We appreciate,
That's right.
we
Yes,
all
yes,
appreciate the
yes.
love
Yes,
and
yes.
support. And even when people don't think that things are happening quick enough, we really appreciate all of the things that you do to help us do the job we do. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Any
Thank
last
you.
words, Damon and Cynthia?
Next week we're having Mayor Norm Branson and Dr. Julio Cavallo from the Independence Party is coming on the show, and it's gonna that's gonna be a very interesting show
Yes.
because Doc gives it to the people.
No doubt, no doubt. Last words?
Next week I'll be here, but I'm going for a walk on Orchard Beach for breast cancer awareness.
Oh no, that's
Okay,
not
okay.
So Damon.
Yeah, well we're pink. Black Westchester went pink.
There
All
you go.
right.
Oh, and
Right.
Thursday we're having a press conference for the New York State parole officers that had their guns pulled out on them by Ramapo police.
Okay.
It's going to be at the federal
Same
courthouse.
place as last
Yeah,
time.
they're pursuing the paperwork and everything. Attorney Benita Zellman, People for Politics attorney, I might say. So thank you,
This
thank you,
Agent
everybody.
Woodson, People Before Politics, Black Westchester. You could be doing anything else, but you decide to ride with us, and we greatly appreciate that. We ask you to check out the site, blackwestchester.com, news with a black point of view. Until next week, peace.
22 million black victims of Americanism are waking up.
Thank you.
And they're gaining a new political consciousness, becoming politically mature. And as they develop this political maturity, they're able to see the recent trends in these political elections. Any minority that has a block of votes that stick together is in a strategic position. Either way you go, that's who gets it. You're in a position to determine who go to the White House and who stay in the doghouse. You're the one who has that power. You and I have never seen democracy. All we've seen is hypocrisy. When we open our eyes today and look around America, we see America not through the eyes of someone who has enjoyed the fruits of Americanism. We see America through the eyes of someone who has been the victim of Americanism. We don't see any American dream. We've experienced only the American nightmare. We haven't benefited from America's democracy. We've only suffered from America's hypocrisy. And the generation that's coming up now can see it and are not afraid to say it. 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 22 million black victims of Americanism are waking up. And they're gaining a new political consciousness, becoming politically mature. And as they develop this political maturity, they're able to see the recent trends in these political elections. Any minority that has a block of votes that stick together is in a strategic position. Either way you go, that's who gets it. You're in a position to determine who go to the White House and who stay in the doghouse. You're the one who has that power. You and I have never seen democracy. All we've seen is hypocrisy.